Thursday, I discovered that it is so much warmer in the gym than there is anywhere else in the LC, so I've been hanging out in here some today. Feels pretty good. Listen, today is my Becca's birthday. Would y'all do me a favor and shoot her a text message and tell her you love her and you're praying for her? I know that'd mean a lot to her. Her phone number, if you don't have, it's 520-335-7426. It'd be a fun surprise for her, and it'd mean a lot to me as well, because there's no way that I could do youth ministry without her. And I don't mean like just a wife. I mean, God gave me her, and she is perfect, and I'm so thankful that He gave her to me. So if you would, help me bless her, please, today. This lesson is so good for a lot of different reasons. It's probably the best one in this section from Exodus that we're going to look at. But it's so important for students to understand idolatry and how insidious it is. I'm convinced that most teenagers, much less most adults, don't understand what idolatry really is. It's not just about not worshiping an object. It's about our affections and our hearts. That little first section on page 57, option 1, the second paragraph gives about as good a definition of idolatry as I've ever seen. So you might read that to them verbatim and talk about that. And if that's the only thing you cover Sunday morning, you've done a great job and you've covered a lot of ground. But help them see how devastating, how devastating that idolatry is, and how we've got to stay away from it. Also, if you want to use the Play-Doh, we have Play-Doh, and I'm happy to go fetch that for you. We've got some young ladies and even some young men who are kind of fidgety, so that might be helpful for them if you want to go that route. But talk to them about idolatry. This is a big deal. It helps not only where we're going, but also just helps us today. Let me encourage you too, guys, read this lesson slowly. And let it be for you what it's been for me this afternoon. Just kind of a good little heart check. Lord, are there things that I have placed before you in my own life? Are there things that I have more affection for than I have affection for you? A really good idolatry test, and you can ask the students this, is if God came to you and said, hey, I want you to give up whatever, fill in the blank, that thing that you love so much. If God said, I want you to give that up, would you throw a fit over that, or would you do it freely? If we throw a fit, that's a pretty good sign that that's, at the very least, it's becoming an idol in our hearts. So again, test your own heart as you're reading through this. Read it slowly, but let's help our students get this too. Let me also jokingly say, this story is one of the reasons that I'm an Aggie, because this story makes it abundantly clear that worshiping of the golden calf or a burnt orange calf is completely sinful. So stay away from those longhorns. By the way, the Bible never says anything kind about bears or raiders or even frogs. However, every time the Bible talks about farmers, it's always a giant thumbs up. So gig 'em, guys. All right, now back to serious stuff, and more importantly. I don't know how many times over the years I've had a student come to me and say, here and otherwise, man, I love the singing part of the worship service. I love to sing. I love to worship. It's so awesome. The preaching time, that's just okay. But, I just love to worship. That's so good. And I'll tell them, yeah, it is. It's great. And God loves that. And I'm thankful that you love that. That's what He made us for. But how do you know you're actually worshiping the real God? Like if that song says something about God that's not true, how would you know that? And how do you know you're worshiping God in a way that He wants to be worshiped? And that usually causes them to slow down. I say this to say to you and to say this to the students. This is why teaching and preaching is so important. See, what the children of Israel did here is they got nervous and they wanted to worship something because that's what they're made to do. And so they defaulted back to an Egyptian god. See, it wasn't just random that they wanted to worship a golden calf, or that Aaron made him a golden calf. It's called an Apis bull. Jabal laws, or Mount Sinai as we know it, at the base of it, there are actually carvings and drawings of calves there where the children of Israel camped. And notice, they tried to worship this false god the same way that God had taught them to worship. They make sacrifices, and they sang, and they celebrated, and ate. It's important for us to know who God really is so that we can truly worship Him, because when we only kind of know who God is, we don't truly worship, and we end up sinning rather than worshiping. So help them see that. And then finally, this is a big deal too. Moses is what's known as a type of Christ. By type of Christ, I mean this. That's a theological term that describes anybody in the Old Testament or anything in the Old Testament that gives us a representative of who or what Jesus did for us. And Moses is a pretty good one, specifically in relation to this intercession concept, because here's what happened. God was right to say, I'm going to destroy the children of Israel for their sin. Okay? Sin always kills. The wages of sin is death. We know this. And Moses interceded on the children of Israel's behalf. He said, no, God, don't do that. I pray that you would declare them innocent. And the book of Hebrews tells us that's exactly what Jesus is doing for us today, even though we are completely guilty, and it would be completely right of God to destroy us because we've done no good. We frequently trade him for other gods. Jesus, on our behalf, and because of his sacrifice, he is praying for us on our behalf that God would spare us. And God does because of an intercessor. Let them feel the weight of that. That's important. And let them rejoice and worship God over that. Guys, I love y'all. Have an awesome week, and I'll see you Sunday.